to a special edition of the Darden Admissions Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. So in this episode of the podcast, we return to our ongoing Faculty Spotlight series, a series we call Office Hours, with a conversation with Rodney Sullivan and Caitlin Boyer. Rodney and Caitlin are with the Mayo Center for Asset Management here at the Darden School of Business. And this conversation is not only part of Office Hours, it's part of a series that we're hosting here in January, focusing on various initiatives happening here at the Darden School of Business. This conversation will be all about what's happening around asset management, and be sure to check back in the coming weeks for our conversations about artificial intelligence and healthcare. As always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Rodney Sullivan and Caitlin Boyer. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be calling in from in the world. My name is Brett Twitty. I'm a member of the admissions committee here at the Darden School of Business. So thank you so much for joining us for this office hours session. You may know this is our ongoing faculty spotlight series where we highlight faculty at the Darden School, but we're using this month's office hours series to kind of focus on something a little bit different. We're taking this opportunity to focus on initiatives and centers of excellence here at the Darden School of Business. We're kicking things off here today with two of my colleagues from the Mayo Center for Asset Management here at Darden. You'll hear from them shortly, but I just want to plug that we're going to have a conversation next week about artificial intelligence and the recently launched AI initiative, or ethical AI initiative here at the Darden School of Business. That'll be next week with Yael Grushka-Kane and Raj Venkatesan. And we'll close out this month with a focus on the healthcare initiative with Christoph Hertfer and Mark Ruggiano. So if you're curious about initiatives and all these exciting things that are underway here at Darden School of Business, we've got a lot in store for you here in January. So let's get to know our panelists here. We're joined by Rodney Sullivan and Caitlin Boyer with the Mayo Center for Asset Management here at the Darden School of Business. Rodney, can I come to you first? Tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Of course. Thanks, Brett, for that welcome. I'm really excited to see you're doing the rounds with the different initiatives. Lots going on here at Darden, so I'm excited to be a part of it here at the Mayo Center. So I'm Rodney Sullivan. I'm Executive Director of the Richard A. Mayo Center for Asset Management here. I also have the great pleasure and honor of teaching several investments courses here at Darden, and we can talk more about that, of course, as we move along. I've been at Darden for 5 years, so I joined in mid-year 2019. So working on my 6th year here now, Brett, and it's been truly a blast and a pleasure being here, being back in Charlottesville. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, so excited to be back in Virginia and enjoying. Well, the weather's not so great now, but generally it's really good. And before Darden, I was at a firm in Greenwich, Connecticut, a large investment management firm that focuses on what's called liquid alternatives. So that's a wonky way of saying we invested both long and short in all liquid markets globally. So stocks, bonds, and commodities. It's a very successful quantitative hedge fund. In fact, the name is called AQR, Applied Quantitative Research. So it kind of gives you a sense for my background. But it's the idea of applying the very best ideas, and whether they come from academia or they come from practice, and then applying those in portfolios. So it really is applied quantitative research, which is a large part what we do here at Darden. So before that, I was with CFA Institute. I was head of publications and editor of the Financial Analyst Journal. So Brett, I've spent roughly half of my career in the education side and teaching folks about finance and how to succeed in finance, and the other half is as a practitioner. And another beautiful thing about Darden is that's what we do here, right? We bridge theory and practice and help students and really then the world better understand the practical ideas that come out of academia. So I'm really excited to be here. We'll talk more about that. But I've been doing this stuff, investments in finance, my whole life. Basically, I started in finance as an undergraduate, working at the state treasurer in Virginia. So I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So really love it and happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rodney. And I will just give a quick plug for this. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Rodney, he was actually on our podcast, our admissions podcast, a little while ago. You can find that out there. Both we have 2 podcasts, Experience Darden and the Exec MBA podcast. And so if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Rodney, take a listen to that episode. All right. We're also joined by Caitlin Boyer with the Mayo Center. Caitlin, do you want to introduce yourself here?
Sure. My name is Caitlin, and I'm the Senior Associate Director of strategic initiatives at the Mayo Center. Came to Darden, I think, 7 years ago. Been in a couple different positions, helping in the faculty realm of things. Moved over to Mayo Center a few years ago. I've been in higher ed, I think, for 15 years now. So originally from Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, I saw in the chat from Hershey, and came to college in Virginia, never left, got into higher ed. Yeah, I've been in, I guess, Darden in this role for a few years, and yeah, I really enjoy being here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us for this conversation, Caitlin. And it's nice just to sort of help underscore that there's a whole team of people that make all this Mayo Center stuff happen. And I know we're going to get into programming and all kinds of things as we talk here. And for folks who've joined us today, just to give you a little bit of an overview of the conversation. So we typically take the first 5 to 10 minutes to get to know our panelists who've joined us today. And then the sort of last 40 50 minutes of the conversation, we're really going to get into the substance of the conversation, and a lot of this is going to focus on a few sort of key lines of things that the Mayo Center does. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what the Mayo Center for Asset Management is all about, and then we're going to talk about some of their initiatives. Traditional asset management, we're also going to talk about private equity, venture capital, entrepreneurship through acquisition, and then we're going to turn our attention to real estate. So we're going to try to cover a lot of ground here. I'll just share if you have questions as we go along. We'll do our best to answer them. Please ask them via the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on those as we go. So, Ronnie, I want to come back to you. Tell us more about what the Mayo Center is all about, because asset management is a very broad category, includes lots of different things.
It does, and we have a full plate here for sure. Brett, well, we can talk about the Asset Management Center. Maybe before I get into that, it's important, I think, to note that one of the things that brought me here to Darden like 5+ years ago is that I think we all know that the world is changing quite rapidly, not just in finance, but of course everywhere. And in finance, I view that the industry's at an inflection point. And in finance, the area that's growing the most rapidly is called private capital. And you mentioned some of those. You mentioned all of those areas, Brett. So private equity, venture capital, real estate, private debt. These are the most rapid areas, rapidly growing areas in finance. And so for me, coming to Darden, we can take that as an opportunity. So when I came here, we're not necessarily trying to solve a problem, if you will, but how do we improve, right, the experience of Darden, the faculty, the students, the alumni, and to position ourselves in a way to support careers and learning in this area that's growing, so quickly. And in fact, we have an aspirational goal. So a long way of kind of answering your question, Brett, is we have this aspirational goal of being well known, both in the world of academia, but beyond that, as being a leader in asset management and private capital. And that sort of leads me to the Mayo Center sort of vision, which is to be a recognized center of excellence in applied sort of management, investment management, that is, in research, events, and developing exceptional purpose-driven leaders. So we're going to do that by being a hub for insightful, inclusive thought leadership in all areas of finance. And so it's an aspirational mission and vision. But we're at an inflection point in our industries that really creates an amazing set of opportunities for us, and we're really excited about the work that we've done and all that we have to do.
And Caitlin, I know you work closely with the programming side of things. What do you enjoy about that work?
I enjoy working with the students and getting to know some of the alumni. Darden in general has been a great community to be part of. Beyond just our center. So I've really enjoyed getting to know students, although they rotate through each year. So new relationships but brings us new alumni. So we're constantly partnering with the alumni for events and mentorship, which I enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, I think about those relationships being so critical when you think about some of these industries and how do you, learn more? How do you build connections? It always starts with alumni and leveraging those relationships. So, Rodney, I want to start And I mentioned we're going to segment our conversation here into sort of these buckets, and I want to start by talking about traditional asset management. And kind of, I think this is a good way to organize the conversation. So, what does that entail? Like, what do we mean by traditional asset management?
Yeah. What are all these different areas? And so, business schools traditionally, like, when I was in school many years ago, this study of asset management was thinking about or learning about sort of long only or maybe long short investing in public markets. So stocks, bonds, and commodities, particularly, the stocks and bonds, which are the largest, segments of markets. And so when we talk about traditional, we didn't know exactly like how to characterize this, but when we think about traditional markets, we're thinking about doing that, right? So you think about like Warren Buffett, right? He's a traditional sort of asset manager. He's been doing this for, I don't know, 70 years or something like that. He has an astounding track record. So what is it about Warren Buffett that makes him so special? What are his skills? What does he do that makes him so successful? And being well-rounded is a big part of that, right? So it's not just a narrow focus on investments, but being a well-rounded leader is part of it, which is part of the Darden curriculum. So when I think about traditional asset management, that's sort of one way to think about it. And business schools traditionally, and still are, and we still are very good, right, at learning about that part of the world. Now, the opportunity again is going beyond that, right? So as the world has evolved and changed into more about private capital, like what is that space? And we'll talk about that. But in terms of like the learning on traditional asset management, I probably won't do a very good job of listening to all the classes. Probably that wouldn't be very interesting. I'm happy to take questions, from folks that are listening. But some things that are like really exciting are sort of fun for me to be involved with. I mentioned that I am involved with teaching a number of classes. And I would say the capstone experience here is Darden Capital Management, which is a course, but it's also students applying the skills that they've learned here at Darden to actively managing a live portfolio. So there's a group of roughly 30 students who manage 6 different funds, long and long short and equities. And also now real estate, by the way, we'll talk about that, which is the 6th fund that we've added about 2 years ago. So it's a very active group that's managing a sleeve of the endowment, so over $30 million that are being managed now by this group. So it's a course, but it's also like hands-on experiential learning that we talk about. There's a parallel course for this called the Darden Executive MBA Fund. And as far as I know, Brett, it's the only executive portfolio management team in the country. If there's another one, someone please let me know, but it's the only one that I know about. And we launched that about the time that I was joining here at Darden. And it's also been quite successful. We manage a sleeve of the endowment. And currently we have about 15 students that are participating in that program. We meet regularly. It's very rigorous. This is not a stock club. This is a term. So yes, we meet to talk about stocks, but it's very organized and very formal. And so every stock that's included in the portfolio goes through a very rigorous, process. And it's as so many things here at Darden it's student-led. So this is a student-led course. And so the students sort of organize themselves around how do we want to go about building this portfolio using the skills that we've learned at Darden. And when we build the curriculum around helping them to succeed, right? We don't just put them out there and say, good luck. We build a curriculum around how to help the students succeed. And we're constantly engaging, with them. So the students will do pitches, stock pitches. And it's a very common way of evaluating a stock, but that pitch has to get through their peers. In other words, that stock you have to convince your peers that this stock belongs in the portfolio. And it can be it's intense, it's fun, competitive, and it just gives again that hands-on experience. So that's one of the courses that I'll highlight. And by the way, I mentioned Warren Buffett. Another sort of fun experience for me is each year and Team Mayo helps with this. Katie and Caitlin help a great deal with organizing this. But we do a trek to Omaha. So the Oracle, we go to see the Oracle of Omaha, which is a very well-known and pretty famous, Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting in Omaha, Nebraska every spring. I don't know, 40,000 people converge on Omaha to attend this shareholder meeting. It's a pretty amazing event. And the whole day, it's a whole day of, Warren Buffett and used to be Charlie Munger, who unfortunately passed away. But it's the senior people in Berkshire Hathaway that answer questions and have a conversation for an entire day. It's a pretty remarkable event. So it's a fun and rewarding experience it's part of the experience, right? It's not a class, but it's part of the experiential learning that you can gain here at Darden. So I could go on and on about the different classes that are offered, but for me, those are a couple of the highlights.
I appreciate that, Rodney. I'm curious, a typical student who's involved with Darden Capital Management, are they thinking about going to work in investment banking? Is that typical student? I mean, tell us a little bit more about the folks who are involved.
It's, it's a blend. I mean, so, we have this core curriculum that everyone knows about that you learn in your first year. And I think that's so important because the skills that you learn, that you evaluate a business, are the same, be it for public markets, venture, or private equity. The business, a business is a business, right? And how they make money, how they're going to succeed, what's their competitive edge. All of those same questions apply no matter what part of the capital market you fall into. And so the long way of answering your question is people that do Darden Capital Management is anyone who's interested in investments. Now, many of those students will go to iBanking. Some will go to traditional, right? Say T. Rowe Price or the London company and down the road street in Richmond that runs a very successful long only investment management firm. So it's going to be a blend. Some will go into private equity or even venture. Again, because just that experience of working on pitches and being evaluated and tested by your peers is not unique to public markets, right? It's a skill that's so important that applies everywhere. So we invite anyone who's interested in investments to participate.
So Darden Capital Management, the Darden Executive Fund, which you mentioned, these are courses that students can participate at. Do you have to be enrolled in the course? Can you just participate as a student without being enrolled?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So yes, and there's a number of ways to get involved. So the Darden Capital Management is the course is a second year, all year course. For students, and also it's available to the pro degree program. So we've now, Yael encouraged me to think about how do you, involve the pro degree programs, and I appreciate that. So I should more precisely say it's in your last year, right, of Darden. After you've finished the core, maybe that's a more precise way of saying that, but it's an elective, and so anyone can join pitches. We publish, through the clubs, the pitches that are upcoming. So anyone can come and sit in. So that's one way to get involved. Anyone can do a pitch, by the way. I've had people in my class, it's pretty cool. Like someone will come and do a pitch and they're not in the class, right? So that's always a lot of fun. Or participate. Maybe there's a pitch that's being done on a particular industry that you know a lot about. And so you might sit in on the pitch and add value. And so you're going to learn a lot, right, from your peers. I mean, that's sort of the Jeffersonian approach, as you know well. So that's one way. There's a couple of ways to get involved. The other way is if you're a first year, you're just entering Darden, how do I get involved besides coming to the pitches? Is you can help work on the pitch, the research, to do the research that's involved in putting together a pitch. So how do I learn about like, what is a pitch? What does that even mean? What are not only the skills I need, but like, what are the components of a successful pitch? What does that look like? And the second years are more than happy to be a mentor and help you understand, like, what is this all about? Is it something of interest to me? And it's one of the really special, there's so many special things about Darden, but it's one of the really special things is the second year, the senior class members we'll take the first year sort of under their wings and help them evolve and understand, what is this all about? How do I succeed? And they do it because the class before them did that for them, and and it just gets passed on, from the one class to the next. And it was one of the things that I learned that's really, really cool. So you can get involved as a first year, just roll up your sleeves and help with some of the analytics and putting together a pitch, and you'll learn about what is this all about.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. And I appreciate you mentioning that virtuous cycle, second year, first year, kind of knowledge transfer, engagement. You see that in so many different ways at Darden across our programs. Example from the full-time MBA program is the career coach program, where second years coach first year students as they go through the career process. Clubs and organizations are another way where this engagement happens. The second years are oftentimes the leaders of the organizations, but really kind of connecting with first years around perhaps a shared career interest or affinity background. And then, when we think about our professional degree programs, we have so many of our executive MBA students either help out as tutors or just as resources for folks as they're navigating, adapting to life in balancing work, life, and school. So I appreciate your mentioning that.
Can I add one other thing? So one of the things we do for first years as they're arriving at Darden in August is we do a welcome event. And in that welcome event, we cover a lot of the things that we're talking about here today, Brett. With the students, we spend something like an hour and a half, with them as they're arriving to help them understand, like, how do you navigate this landscape of, Darden and gaining, a foothold in investment management industry. How do I, leverage my career and catapult my career to the next level? And as part of that, we bring each of the club leaders into this session, and we go through each of the clubs that are involved in asset management and talk about how you get involved. And again, like the second years that are leading these clubs just love talking to and supporting the next generation of students. So it's a very important and integral part of the journey.
Caitlin, I imagine you're probably playing an important role in facilitating that event that Rodney was just talking about. Any programming that you would want to particularly highlight as we think about this sort of traditional asset management initiative?
Yeah, so each fall we do UVA investing conference, and we partner that with our student pitch competition, where they host schools that come from all over. And it's a student-run event. Our event, we partner with them in the evening. We've had speakers, workshops, various versions of it throughout the year, but it's been a great opportunity for those students to get involved and meet other students. It's a competitive pitch competition. I will say that these students are also they're traveling themselves in groups to pitch competitions all over. So, yeah.
Yeah, the University of Virginia Investment Conference is a big deal. Lots of people come to that, and I know we've got some questions in the Q&A about how do executive MBA and part-time MBA students engage with this. I will oftentimes, I've definitely seen executive MBA students and part-time MBA students come to the University of Virginia Investing Conference, and I know we're going to talk a little bit later maybe about some of the programming that happens up in the DC area. So conferences, events, these kinds of things are a great way to kind of bring all these populations together. I want to transition now to talk about another initiative that's underway, sort of around private equity, venture capital, and entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA as it's known. I will just say, it feels like there's a surging interest in ETA at Darden generally. We've had so many conversations on the podcast recently about ETA. We also have a new member of the Batten Institute that's joined, focused on ETA. So a lot of energy around ETA. But Rodney, where would you want to start as we think about private equity, venture capital, and ETA in the Batten and the Mayo Center? Excuse me.
Yeah. So about I think it was 2021, 2022, we launched three initiatives in private capital, and there were three separate initiatives, but they really are all trying to accomplish the same thing, which is how do we, as I was alluding to earlier, how do we support learning engagement in the area of private capital, and how do we help students sort of navigate that space? And so we have to sort of think about them together, because they don't they're not really independent sleeves that operate independent of one another. So venture capital and private equity and ETA kind of all go together. Again, so the learning sort of transcends any one of those sleeves. And so what I would say is if you're joining Darden, we haven't talked about this yet, but we have this co-curricular set of activities that we've developed along in partnership or in line with that launch of initiatives that we did about 3 years ago. And part of that is we launched this thing called the VC Learning Series. And the VC Learning Series is for first year students that are arriving at Darden. Again, what is this? What is the ecosystem of venture capital? What does it mean? And how do I get in? What does venture capital even mean? Like, what is that? And we're very, very fortunate to have an outstanding group of faculty. We haven't talked about the faculty too much yet, but we should certainly do that. But this particular course is now led by Les Alexander, and Les takes the student on a journey, right? From how did venture capital even become a thing? How did it originate? What does it mean? And where are we now in that ecosystem? And it sort of culminates with pitches. So we talked about doing pitches in public markets, with stocks. Well, we have pitches also, pitch competitions for venture capital and also real estate that are very active and helping students to understand what does it mean to deeply engage and making decisions in this business. And so this journey sort of starts, at the very beginning, and then here we are in January. So we're going to be doing, I think Caitlin can verify this, but I think there's the venture capital pitch competition that's coming up very soon in a couple of weeks. And so that's one way, right, to get engaged. But as part of that venture capital learning series, it's not just for people interested in venture capital, right? So it's if you want to get involved in private equity or entrepreneurship through acquisition, also this series is going to be very important for you. So that's, I would characterize it in that way, Brett. Like there's an array. As soon as you come to Darden, we're gonna introduce you to all these opportunities that are in front of you.
Yeah, Ronnie, if you wouldn't mind, gotten a couple questions here in the Q&A. I think oftentimes we talk about these things like folks know exactly what they are, but can we do a little bit of defining here just to make sure that we're all on the same page? Because I think this is one of the things people look at MBA programs and kind of struggle with is like people throw around things like private equity, venture capital, entrepreneurship through acquisition, but maybe not always sure exactly what it is. So what is private equity?
That's great. So thanks for that question. We had to back up. So as part of the learning, as part of the Mayo Center welcome event that we were talking about earlier, Brett, I walked through the ecosystem, and it takes about a half an hour to do that fully. So I don't think we have time, for that today, because we try to demystify. So the way that I would demystify this, Brad, is think about investing as where are you in the business? Where's the business in its journey? Right. If it's a very early on, if it's a startup, right? So it's just a startup being initiated by a couple of entrepreneurs, then you're considered venture capital, right? You have a new venture that you're looking to succeed with, and you're looking to find capital to help support that new venture, right? So that's early in the career of a business. So that's venture. As you evolve, as the business grows and succeeds, now you're farther along that curve. And that's where private equity maybe comes in. You have a business, it's established, and you want to grow it. So there's a part of private equity called growth equity. Not a surprise, right? So what does that mean? It means you're investing in businesses that are sort of still maybe somewhat new, but more established and have sort of proven the proof of concept is already in place. And now you're looking to take that business to the next level. So you need equity. Right, you need an infusion of capital to build the team, to build that business. So that's where private equity may come into place. And then the next stage of that is going public. So you've heard the term initial public offering. That's where a company, private equity firm, will help that business through the initial public offering process and become a public company. So that's kind of how the stages, as I think about it, probably the easiest way to understand it.
In entrepreneurship through acquisition, how would you explain that to someone?
Yeah, ETA. So ETA is, I would consider it a subset of two things. So we haven't talked too much about entrepreneurship. So it's a combination of entrepreneurship and private equity. So, and the reason is because with ETA, what ETA is all about is it's sometimes the term is called search fund. And the reason it's called the search fund is let's say a family office is interested in making an investment in an established business where maybe the owners are looking to, let's just say, retire, right? Let's say they're looking to get out of the business and they want a so-called liquidity event, right? So they want to sell the business. Well, this is where ETA would come in. So an ETA would say, look, let's establish a search fund, let's create a fund where there's money in place, and then let's find a business. And so that family office will hire a Darden student oftentimes, right, to lead that search. And most recently, the example is a very successful launch and purchase of a garage door business that is growing and very successful. And the student is having a blast running this business. It's been in place for a while, but it has opportunities to grow. So that's, I don't know if that's helpful. So it's both entrepreneurship, right, but also investment, because now you've made the purchase of the business, and now you got to run the business. We create well-rounded leaders here at Darden, and so you're well positioned, right, to run the business and also understand the financial side of things. So I would say Darden students are particularly well positioned for ETA.
Do you feel like there's a particular reason why it's been growing in popularity? Honestly, we now have an ETA club for the full-time MBA students. I've met a few more people who this is on their mind. I certainly hear quite a few of our executive MBA students talking about entrepreneurship through acquisition as something that they're thinking about. But why do you think it's been growing in popularity?
Well, it's a confluence. It's a confluence of things. So I mentioned earlier, Les Alexander, joined Darden. I'm sorry, Les, I don't remember exactly what year because he feels like he's been here a long time, but it's pretty recently, right? It's maybe 3 years. I think Les has been here. He can correct me on that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we have opportunities, right, to help position students to succeed in private capital. And ETA is one of those things that we didn't launch an initiative around, but it became very clear there was a big opportunity for us to position ourselves to help students in ETA. So that's one reason, is we're opportunistic, and we have the right team and resources in place with the Mayo Center and Les Alexander to help lead. And we have a class in ETA now, right? So if you're interested in that space, there's tremendous amounts of opportunity. So that was one important thing. And the other important thing is there's, as I mentioned, the area of private capital is the fastest growing. And so this is a subset of that private, capital area that's growing really quickly, is, the ETA, is sort of that ETA segment. And so we've just positioned ourselves, into that segment to help, students succeed. Other thing I would just say that I want to say is unique about Darden is, again, so we create these well-rounded leaders. So oftentimes at B schools, you're focused in a finance track, for instance, or maybe you're focused on leadership, right, and running organizations. Well, Darden, we do both of those things, and so you're particularly well trained, right, to handle sort of that phase of those different phases of ETA. So running the search fund, doing the evaluation of the business. We talked a lot, kind of a little bit ago about how do you evaluate a business, and the same skill set applies whether it's public or private. So you've learned that skill set here at Darden. You know how to evaluate the business. You know how to evaluate its competitive edge or its competitive moat, and you also have learned, right, how to run the business, because that's part of the core and part of what we do here. So I would just argue that Darden students are particularly well positioned. I've said that before, but it's one of the things that we've just been opportunistic in pursuing, and it's been very successful. So it's great when, you try some things out. Like one of the things we have to, this is, we're at an inflection point. You don't know necessarily which direction things are going. So you need to be opportunistic, and cool thing about Darden is that's what we do. So we're going to try things out, see if they work. And if they work, we'll do more of it.
Yeah, I appreciate your sort of underscoring the generalist orientation of our MBA programs. Everybody takes a core. There's no placing out of classes here at Darden. The core in the full-time MBA program is essentially the first year. Executive MBA program, it's the first year of the program. Part-time MBA is about 18 months, and then you move into an elective period. And it's funny talking with the students as they get to electives. I don't always get the impression that their decisions are being driven by a concentration or really wanting to sort of earn a concentration. It tends to be more, I'm just interested in these classes, or I wanted to take this particular class with this particular professor, or they're curious about this. I wanted to challenge myself in new ways. I think that might be surprising to some of our attendees today. Darden, again, sort of underscoring sort of general management idea, a lot of value in breadth and being exposed to lots of different things.
Yeah, our one of our outgoing club leaders, said it's sort of build your own adventure, here at Darden. So the first year, is the core. Then of course you're engaged, as we said, with the clubs, and then in year two, you're selecting those courses that you find will be most beneficial, right, to your journey. And so it is sort of a create your own adventure, and alongside that we continue, right, the co-curricular activities with speaker series and all these UVic that we talked a bit about. So there's a lot of ways to sort of plug in and do a deeper dive right into the areas of interest for you.
Caitlin, I want to come to you and talk a little bit more about programming around private equity, venture capital, ETA. Anything you would want to highlight?
Well, just going back to ETA for a sec here, we have in September, mark your calendars now, September 5th through 6th, the Southeast Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition Conference is coming to Darden. So that's a big deal for us. We're part of a group of universities that it rotates through. It's our turn to host, and it'll be here at Darden right when you start school. So anyone's welcome. I just looked, the registration page is up. So if you're interested in that, that would be a great way to start off your time here at Darden. Again, anyone can join for that. Other programming, we have the learning series that happens in the fall. That's open to all students, even pro-degree students. We send out Zoom links. And we do a speaker series with each of these initiatives. So we'll get to it later probably, but the real estate initiative, we partner with our center across grounds. It's a pan-university center, but they host great speakers over there. And so we attend those as we're able. There are some job treks that happen. Real estate in particular does a job trek to DC, one to Richmond, some networking events. As you'll learn, networking is key in private equity, building those partnerships and relationships. We try to host as many alumni between the clubs and our center. There's a partnership there, and we'll bring in folks just to simply allow for networking and conversation. Since as you learned, each part of these initiatives is so broad in a lot of ways. There's a lot of different pathways you can take. We try to expose students to all of those, or as many as we can. This spring, one of our keynote events, we have the Venture Capital Conference happening in March. It'll be our second annual conference, and that actually happens up at the Sands Family Grounds location in DC. And it'll be an all-day event with speakers and workshops. It'll be, we sold out last year, and we're probably on our way to selling out this year. So space is limited, and get your ticket now is all I can say. But yeah, Rodney, did I miss any major events? I'm trying to think. We do a lot of events. We try to diversify our programming and find something that interests everybody.
No, this is great. I would also point out that the team is working with Les Alexander on the second annual Venture Capital Conference. So, Caitlin, would you maybe want to talk a little bit about that, if that's okay with Brett?
Yeah. So that is, March, and it'll be in DC. Les is bringing in speakers from all over. We're building out the agenda now, so I can't really give you any insight onto who's going to be there, but we keep our website pretty updated. If you're interested in looking for specific topics, we usually try to cover a few different topics. I think AI is on the agenda because I know that's a buzzword now. And how does that play into venture capital? Great way to network with alumni. We'll do a reception at the end of the day. Yeah, tickets usually sell out. So get your ticket now if you want.
Thank you, Caitlin. Ronnie, one more question before we transition to real estate. So I know we have a lot of interest in private equity and venture capital, but when you talk with folks from a career standpoint, these can be really difficult fields to break into. Why are they difficult? What career advice would you have for folks who are interested in these particular paths?
It can be very difficult to break into. It's just so highly competitive. As I mentioned, it is very fast growing, but of course, students, all students got to know this, and so it's highly competitive. That's the first thing I would point out. It's also there's a lot of sort of, I don't want to say nuance, but there's a skill set that needs to be developed that's really important to have in place before you go to work for a private capital or a private equity or venture capital firm. And the reason is because a lot of these firms many of them tend to be relatively, obviously there are some large ones, but many of them tend to be smaller and simply don't have the resources to train individuals if they don't already have that skill set. There just aren't the resources to train them. So you sort of need that skill set in place even to compete, with those to get into those jobs. And and so oftentimes what we'll see is if you don't have that deep experience already built, students will oftentimes go to iBanking first. And I've mentioned I've been here like a little over 5 years now. It's sort of fun to now watch the career journey, of students. So the students that are sort of that cohort when I first came here are now reaching out to me saying, okay, now I'm ready for my next step. Like, how do I plug into that? And so we work with them, right? So we have a deep alumni network. We have groups here at Darden that help you plug into that, in that job search. So it's a journey, right? So there's, what can you do coming out of Darden, but also there's what am I have to look forward to in the next 3 to 5 years? And so oftentimes what we see is students going into venture or private equity more specifically after, they've had some experience in iBanking. And I'm seeing some, highly successful examples, of that. I'm sure it's been happening for a long time, and I'm sort of seeing it firsthand now because, my students are reaching out to me and they're saying, hey, look what I did. And that's very gratifying. And I tell the story of, I had this great pleasure of being mentored by a number of people, one of which is Bob Bruner, who's, the legendary Bob Bruner, when I came here. And he said, one of the things that's going to happen is, you'll find that after your students graduate, they'll stay in touch with you, and then they'll kind of reach back out to you, and you'll stay in touch. And I didn't really fully appreciate that comment at the time, but now I do. And Bob said it was the most gratifying thing he does, at Darden. I hope that's okay if I say that, but I find that like really interesting. And now that I've been here, I agree with him. Like, it is like the most gratifying thing is seeing students that you've been mentoring and working with and gotten to know succeed. So I don't know. Hope that answers the question, but.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I can't underscore enough the importance of networking, particularly if you want to work in these kinds of fields, small, relationship oriented. I think this will come up again as we talk about real estate. So let's transition, as we got about 15 minutes or so here, to talk about the other initiative that we plan to talk about here today around real estate here at Darden. Tell us a little bit more about the real estate initiative, Rodney.
Real estate is, part of the areas of private capital that's growing equally rapidly. Real estate is obviously a huge industry. There are some challenges now in commercial real estate that we can get into. But yeah, it's another area that students are keen to and have been hugely successful entering into for many years at not just Darden, but also the McIntyre School, right, the undergraduate program. And here you have the finance side, right, of real estate, which is, how do you put together the monies to say buy a property? But the other parts of it is development. Right? How do you identify, these properties? How do you, get the most out of them? And how do you even like build them? Like, what are you building? Like, what is, and so all of those pieces kind of go together, which is, there's a lot of skills that we've talked about that relate to the venture and private equity, but real estate tends to be a little bit unique in that regard.
I appreciate that. Any particular courses you would want to highlight for folks who are kind of curious about this from a curricular standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, so we've launched these initiatives, and what we found is the things that we're doing in one of these initiatives apply to the others. So, this idea of networking, right, is not unique, right, to venture and private equity. It's equally important in real estate. And so a lot of the activities, you'll see, overlap in terms of what those activities are. So in real estate, we identified this wonderful opportunity to partner with the McIntyre Center for Real Estate in the Built Environment. So this is a center that was launched at McIntyre, I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago. But they've been working on this, this center for a while and developing this center for a while. So they have sort of a Mayo Center. So the Mayo Center does a little bit of everything in asset management, but McIntyre has a center that's focused on just real estate. And they have a wide network of alums. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know that group. And, like so many things at UVA, we reached out to them and, they said, hey, it was very open arms. We were welcomed with very open arms. How can we work together, right? How can we make each other better? And so we've been doing that, right, since we launched a real estate initiative, 3 years ago. And Caitlin can talk more, but there's a like the other things we do, there's curricular activities and then there's co-curricular activities. I'll talk on the curricular side, and then Caitlin maybe can weigh in on the other things that we do that we've been ramping up. But on the curriculum side, we have a number of courses that are training that we do for the students. So there's particular software called Argus, right, that you need to learn to master, right, if you're going to be on the finance side in particular. And so we, again, work with McIntyre to put students into this training program so you can learn the tools. And then that feeds into, of course, the core, but then also the electives. You have several electives in real estate, that are open to you. We have a adjunct faculty called Tony Smith, who's had a long and successful career in real estate that just kindly generously donates really his time to teach the students, and we're grateful to have Tony's engagement. So there's a number of courses that are being offered as electives in real estate. And again, Caitlin's going to talk about the co-curricular, but that's also where you get a lot of learning experience.
Yeah, I'll also add we have a partnership with the architecture school where students can take a couple electives there. So that's if you want to expand, there's real estate development, applied real estate that the architecture school offers. So that's part of the partnership. And one of the great things about having the Center for Real Estate that brings us all together is that we can share courses and expand on the opportunities for students. So at Darden, we've been hosting the real estate conference that the Center for Real Estate actually puts on, but we've been a key partner in that, hosting it at Darden in Charlottesville, and that's on its second or third year, I think. It's an annual event, happens in the fall. We also partner with them for job checks. That's probably one of the best ways to learn about real estate is to go in the field and see what folks are doing. There's so many different aspects to it. We'll be in board meetings one day and on sites in construction gear the next day. So it's really an experiential opportunity for students to attend spring and fall. I'm trying to think, just looking at my notes here. And Rodney mentioned the professional trainings that we do, a lot of them in partnership with the center because we want to maximize our opportunities here. the Argus training. We'll bring in speakers, and we've bring in a variety of alumni to meet with our club. So our club is an active part of this equation as well. And I will say that all the clubs, the private market clubs in general, have been a really strong partner in what we do at the Mayo Center and across Darden. If you're at all interested in these areas, join the club first and come to our events. So I'll emphasize that aspect. But I think
I would add just one thing. We mentioned the pitch competitions earlier. This is another area where pitch competitions are really important. So we have the training, right, and the software, tools, and then you apply those tools, right, in developing a pitch, and working with the real estate club, the Mayo Center sponsors a group of students that go to UT Austin. They also go to UNC. To participate in these pitch competitions. And the pitch competition is, and I didn't mention this before, but of course it's about the skill, developing this skill. But each one of these pitch competitions is its own unique networking opportunity as well. And oftentimes, again, one of those gratifying things is students will come back, they're really jazzed because they met someone, a firm at one of these pitch competitions that's looking to hire, and maybe they've gotten a job, or maybe they now have a new path, right, that wasn't open to them before. Remember, there's folks that are judging these pitch competitions, and oftentimes, most often, right, those judges are folks that are in the business, right, that are running firms, be it traditional, private capital, or real estate. So it's really an opportunity for it's kind of an interview in many respects. So so that's another great learning opportunity is the pitch competitions, and also the job treks. So the job treks that we do in all these areas are just beneficial to just kind of boots on the ground, but also meeting leaders right in the profession.
Brett, if I can add one more thing. As a residential student, you'll do a first-year internship. The Mayo Center sponsors the Darden Venture Fellows, and we have Mayo Center Fellows as well. So those the Mayo Center Fellows cover opportunities in private equity and real estate, Venture Fellows obviously in venture. But we try to partner with companies that might not be able to financially support a full-time intern for the summer. We offer a matching stipend. We try to build the relationship, coordinate it for the students, help the companies see what the opportunity is that we can provide them with students. So we have a group of students every summer that go off to these internships as part of their experience at Darden, so they can get hands-on experience in private markets.
Thank you, Caitlin. So Rodney, real estate, obviously a very broad area, broad field. When you talk with Darden students and they want to work in real estate, what kind of opportunities are they typically talking about? What kind of roles are they thinking about?
So it's there are lots of there are a number of firms and very successful alumni, right, that are in this space that are going to help them to mentor you. So the opportunities are generally fall into two broad buckets. One is the development side, which is like I mentioned, sort of identifying properties and helping to grow those properties into success. And then the other side is sort of the financing side. And so typically what students would do is they say, well, I want to go into this part, right, or one or the other. You kind of go into one or the other. Just like venture capital is, either you're on the financing side, right, you're helping to fund this startup business, or you're helping to run it. And this is where, sorry, I'm going to come back to your real estate question in a second, but we didn't mention the Batten Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, but we partner very closely with the Batten Institute, which are our neighbors across the hall. And in fact, we talked a lot about ETA, but the E in ETA is entrepreneurship. So that the ETA really more squarely falls with the Batten Institute. We don't really silo. We don't silo at all here at Darden. We work very closely with Batten, so it doesn't really matter if you're. So if a student is not sure like how do I pursue my interest? Do I go to Batten or do I go to the Mayo Center? And the answer is yes. You just come to us. We're going to get you to the. We're going to get you on the right path. So come see Caitlin or myself or anyone in Batten, and we're gonna help you out. So you don't have to fret over like which direction do I go. And real estate's the same way. So with real estate, students will come find me or Caitlin and say, what do I do? And the answer is, well, it depends on what you want to accomplish, and then we'll help you sort of design that journey. As the former student said, sort of build your own journey here at Darden. So we're going to help you, build that. And if for some reason that we don't already offer the course that you're looking for, or the experiential learning that you're looking for, we have another thing that we haven't talked about, Brett, and that's independent studies. We do lots of independent studies around the Mayo Center. Our faculty, so we have two academic directors, Elena Litskina and Pedro Matos. Elena especially does tons of independent studies. I know Les Alexander does them. I do them as well. So if there's something where you come to us and like, well, I want to learn something, I want to really zero in, I want to own my skills in like this one particular area. I want to be, want to be able to go to market with that skill and have the confidence. Come see us. Like we can work on an independent study with you. So it's really sort of we'll help you to design, that journey so that you're successful.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. I want to come back to a question we got here in the Q&A. You mentioned earlier that there's a real estate fund within Darden Capital Management. You want to talk a little bit more about that? Some folks are interested in learning more about that.
So, as I mentioned, like students come to us and say, this is what we want to do. And when I first arrived at Darden, a student came to me. It was in August, and I just arrived. I'd been here a few months, and he said, "We need a fund. We need a real estate fund." And I said, "Well, okay, let's talk about what that means." And so we began this journey, right, of launching a fund within Darden Capital Management that focuses on real estate and real estate adjacent, businesses. It's not private capital; it is public markets. But again, like I said before, the skill sets, there's a lot of overlap. And so it took a couple of years because we had to get board approval. We had to create a pitch. We had to be able to convince the board that we're going to succeed with this once we launch it. And the board is funded it, for us. So we made the pitch to the board, and the board said, here's some money. You're approved to launch this new fund, and then they funded, right? The board voted to fund this new real estate fund. So I think it's called the Colonnade Fund. Caitlin can correct me on that. I think it's called the Colonnade Fund. So it's our sixth fund. I think there's 5 students that are involved in running that fund, and it's been just a really exciting for growth opportunity, right, for us as Darden, but also provided students, the necessary sort of opportunity, right, to gain that hands-on experience and evaluating these businesses. So that course sort of feeds, feeds back into the pitch competitions. It feeds back into the learning of real estate and how do I take these skills and apply them. So it's another sleeve, right, within the sleeve of funds that are run within Darden Capital Management, and I should say it's been hugely successful. We still have some work to do there, and developing the skill sets, but it's come a long way in just a few years. So it's another just part of the I mentioned before about being opportunistic, right, with things that come our way, and this is one of those examples.
All right. Well, one more question as we wrap up here. Thanks everybody for joining here. We sometimes ask for advice, this kind of thing, but I wonder, Rodney and Caitlin, if it would make more sense just to ask for like next steps. Let's say someone's gotten really interested in what we talked about here today. Obviously, we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about these 3 initiatives within the Mayo Center. Talked about everything from traditional asset management to private equity, venture capital, ETA, to now real estate. All these different funds, Darden Capital Management, et cetera. What's a good next step, Rodney, do you think, for someone who wants to learn more about the Mayo Center and what you're doing?
It can be overwhelming, and so we have a couple of ways that students can engage just to learn more. First is like we put the landing, the Mayo Center landing website right there on the chat. So that's the first place to start. Caitlin joined us, I think it was 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, something now. And, as part of her energy and effort when she first arrived is, how do we put a website into place that can, provide students with information about all the different things we're doing. So, this website is very functional. It's all the different things that we're doing, both curriculum wise, but also the events and programming and the clubs. It's really all encompassing. So she's made that website so that it's I think a very useful and vibrant site that folks can go to learn more. If you're a student, then the other thing we haven't talked about this, but Caitlin is also, she does everything for us, right? So the other thing she's been leading is an intranet site, so a portal for students. And so within that, so we have a lot of information here on the extranet site that's open for everyone. But then there's that portal that's for students, and it is even more detailed. It is everything that's happening in that space that is of interest to you. So if there's a speaker coming, not just the events, but not just the major events that we list here, but every speaker, pitches, everything that's happening around that ecosystem is on that portal. So you'll want to tap into that, and then that's the second thing to do. And the third thing is talk to the club. Be sure to engage with the club leaders if you're not already. That's really important to do. And then Caitlin and I, of course, are available as well.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney. I'm going to slip in just a quick bonus question before I ask for Caitlin's next step. We've got a few questions here about connections with the CFA Institute. I know you came from the CFA Institute. CFA Institute is headquartered in Charlottesville. Any connections between Mayo and the CFA, or Darden and CFA?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, I forget the formal name now, but we're essentially a university partner. And so we support the CFA curriculum and program. We offer a limited number of scholarships for students in the fall. And so if you're coming into Darden, or even if you're the second year, you can apply for one of those scholarships that supports registering for the CFA exam. We have, I don't know, Brett, I think it's maybe 30 plus students, right, that will sit for the CFA exam every year. So we have a large and vibrant group of either they're already charter holders or somewhere in the program. As we know, it's 3-year. The CFA, and I can talk, if folks want to know, I can talk more about the curriculum itself, but it's 3 exams. So it takes a few years to work your way through that program. So there's students, at various stages of the journey with the CFA. And, our curriculum, of course, supports the CFA, but we also do explicitly right through the scholarships I mentioned.
Yeah, thank you for indulging that. We just had a few questions about it. I know it's for folks who are interested in asset management. It's not surprising that they're interested in the CFA credential.
Encourage you to do this. We encourage all of our students that are interested in investments. And of course, I have it, so I'm a little bit biased. But it was also, I don't know, maybe we talked about this earlier, Brett, when we met on the podcast. But it's been really important in my career to having the CFA designation. It is the gold standard, designation in investments. And so students will say, do I need the CFA and also the MBA? And my answer is, of course, yes. But it's true. I really, truly believe that. And I think they're complementary.
All right. Thank you, Rodney. And Caitlin, you get the last word here. Next steps for our attendees today who've been curious about this conversation, want to learn more about the Mayo Center.
Yeah, well, like Rodney said, if you haven't already, bookmark our website. I'm hoping all your answers are there, but I'll highlight a couple of the upcoming events. We have an economic and market outlook event coming up. We'll do it in 3 locations, Richmond, Charlottesville, and Roslyn, and that's open to the public. Anyone can come learn about that. More information's on our front page. You'll see upcoming program and events on the website. And then later this spring, March 28th, we'll have the Venture Capital Conference in DC. So check out those events, review our website, reach out if you have questions, contact the clubs. And also I'll add the faculty here are really willing to have conversations. So if you see a faculty doing research that interests you, reach out to them as well. So Yeah.
Thank you, Caitlin. And thank you, Rodney, for all your time today. I know we've gone a little bit over, but there's just so much to cover. So many great things happening at the Mayo Center. And I'll just plug this for folks who may be watching the recording or listening to this. We will share out this conversation on our admissions podcast, as I mentioned earlier, Experience Darden and the Exec MBA podcast. These are our two admissions podcasts. Experience Darden is a bit more focused on the full-time MBA experience here. And then Exec MBA podcast, we share conversations about the executive MBA and part-time MBA programs. The Mayo Center's landing page is darden.virginia.edu/Mayo, Mayo, just like the condiment, -center. So hopefully you can navigate your way there and check out the really helpful resources that Caitlin and Rodney and team have put together. So thank you all for your time. As I mentioned, we'll be back next week, next Thursday, with a conversation all about what's happening around artificial intelligence here at the Darden School of Business. I know that's a hot topic in the world. It's certainly a hot topic amongst prospective MBA students. So hope to see you there. But Rodney, Caitlin, thank you again for your time. And to all our attendees, thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
And that was my conversation with Rodney Sullivan and Caitlin Boyer with the Mayo Center for Asset Management here at the Darden School of Business. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.